through the eyes of systemic constellation work. And if you don't know what that is, you may not understand everything we're talking about today. So we apologize for that, but you will have, at the end, you will have both of our website where you can read up more about constellation work, and you're welcome to ask us questions later on about it. But this call is about what we see in systemic constellation work in regards to the coronavirus. And we are actually not doing a constellation. Some people asked, are we going to see a constellation? No, we're speaking about what we have seen in the constellations and trying to make some sense of it. That's kind of the first cause of this call. And Karl Heinz, of course, is a medical doctor who uses constellations all the time to work with symptoms and illnesses. So he's an expert on this particular subject. And I'm really happy you're here, Karl Heinz, so we can have this conversation today.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Samvedam.
Great.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do is just give you the outline. So we're going to have a conversation, the two of us, and sharing what we've seen. And then we're inviting some of you to share what you might have seen in this work, or what you understand, or you can ask questions. And then at the end of the call, Karl Heinz will offer us a method that he's been using that he calls healing voices, which he uses in constellations that is helping us work with building our immune system and is a healing modality. So that's the last part of the call. And all throughout, feel free to put things in the chat or write your questions, and we will answer them, maybe not all on the call, but certainly afterwards. Okay, so I'm going to start with just introductions. And first of all, I want to acknowledge Maya, who's in the background. Maya has put this platform together and is doing all the technical support. And maybe we can see you for a minute, Maya, and you can speak about the technical bitses that might need speaking to.
Good morning. So I am also managing the waiting room at the moment, so you might find me a little distracted in my my messaging at the moment. I know that we spoke about just what are the important things for people to understand for this call technically, and there's a few things. One is that there are two views that everybody gets to have, and one is the speaker view and one is the gallery view. And so when you want the gallery view, when you want to really feel the community that has come together here to listen to Karl Heinz and to Samvedam and discuss this important topic, then you want to go to the gallery view where you'll see everyone. And when you want to focus in, and this is our recommendation, particularly as Karl Heinz and Samvedam begin to speak, you want to move to speaker view. It's a little less visually stimulating and allows you to take in the information a bit more clearly. And again, if you're having some technical difficulties, you want to send to me privately a communication, and I'll see whether I can help you from a distance. And for anything about questions that you may have or particular thoughts, feedback, it would be great for you to put them in the chat. Some of the things we will address during this time, and others I know that Karl Heinz and Samvedam are prepared to respond to after this session over these next few days. Someone was also asking about, do we have Karl Heinz's email? At the end of this time, you will see both Samvedam Randles and Karl Heinz, both email as well as website where further connections can occur. I think that's it.
Thank you, Maya. Okay, so let me give a brief introduction to who we are, who's talking here today. And we are actually both German citizens. We're both trained. I'm a psychologist by training. Karl Heinz is a medical doctor. So we're both trained in the Western world. And we're both now using constellation work as our main modalities for healing work and treatment. So my name is Samvedam Randles, and I run the Inner Arts Institute in Watertown, Massachusetts. And I've been teaching constellation work for about a decade. And the last 5 years, I've really zoomed in more on collective trauma work, as we're in a bigger collective group working with underlying trauma that is still influencing us today. And it's in that context also I met Karl Heinz, who also works with the collective trauma issues. And we are certainly in a time right now that is collective trauma inducing. And we're trying our best to not add another layer of numbness and shutdownness to the cultural layers here by helping being present with what is and feeling what is going on. So Karl Heinz works in Germany as a medical doctor, and he too uses constellations, as I said, in his work as a doctor healing people. He still receives testing and other diagnostic tools from the medical world, but pretty much solely relies on constellations as his healing practice. And over the last few years, he added these healing voices, and they have been very helpful to people as a new tool in the constellation process. So because of his being a doctor, he has focused on working with illnesses and symptoms and has a lot of experiences with that. And as we're dealing with an illness, the coronavirus, I thought it would be fabulous to have this conversation with you, Karl Heinz. So is there anything you'd like to add so far, just throwing it your way?
Yeah, well, thank you for this invitation. Well, I think it's all good. And I will say what I some more to my work later on. But basically, I'm a medical doctor trained in the Western world who always felt free to discover all the other aspects of healing, all the aspects of the human being as a doctor, as a shaman, as a philosopher. So I never accepted boundaries of understanding, and so that's basically for now. But I want to welcome also everybody. I mean, it's great that you're all here with us.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So let's jump in, and what I would like to do is describe very briefly some of the dynamics I've been observing in the constellations around the coronavirus. And it's always a little difficult to describe constellations because they're such a kinesthetic experience. So I'm trying to keep it as short as possible. So I probably have done about 5 or 6 constellations at this point about the coronavirus in the various groups that I run. And I want to just focus in on 2 because they held this, there is a pattern I see, and that pattern puzzles me. And that's why I wanted to ask you about it. Because in the first constellation, we worked in a small group. And at that point, we weren't in lockdown or nothing was closed yet. So the question in the room was about, is it still okay to travel? Which of course it was not, but at that point we didn't know that. So we only had 4 representatives. One was travel, one was isolation, one was the coronavirus, and the last one was because that phrase had come up in the room a number of times, so I made it normal way of life. And I need to say that any constellation I do, I usually work blind. And that means that the representative who holds this particular representation does not know who or what he or she is representing. So there's no mental input. It's just pure experiencing what's in my body in this place at this moment. And what happened in that constellation is that isolation and travel found each other very quickly and ended up back to back, as we so often see when dualities meet or polarities meet in a constellation. So they just connected and stayed together. normal way of life was hiding behind a curtain for the moment as soon as the virus arrived. And the virus was looking into a faraway position and had really no connection with any of the other things. And so, as we often do in a constellation, I placed someone into the place that the virus was looking. So in constellations with symptoms or illnesses, we often look at what's the message, what's being communicated, what is this illness representing or standing for. And what entered was a large, very pleasant presence. And it was very connected to the virus. And the words that were exchanged were, "You belong here. I'm so glad you're here." A very loving connection between the two of them. And as that occurred, normal way of life came out from behind the curtain, tried to approach this new loving presence. This did not want this and made it really clear. The words were, "I have nothing to give you. I don't have anything more to give you." And then normal way of life lay down on the floor between the virus and this new presence. So that was the first experience I wanted to share. And at that time, I thought, well, maybe this new presence is nature or the earth or something like that. So a week later, I had another opportunity to do a constellation. And this time I added the earth, thinking, okay, let's see if that's what it was. And then the experience, and I'd like to show you a picture of that. Maya, could you put the screenshot up? It's a poor quality, but it's a quick screenshot of what occurred there. And so here, the earth, again, blind, nobody knows who's who. So this is here my office, you can see. So this time, the earth faced the virus, and that representative immediately said, "You are such a treasure. People don't understand what a treasure you are." And then something happened that was very surprising to me, because of course I'm home now, I'm not in my office. My dog came in. He is not a trained representative, but he came right in and he lay down with his nose on that piece of paper that represents the virus. So that was quite astounding to me. And I don't want to go through all the other representations, just that on the chair, on the white chair, at first just facing the wall in the chair. Then I changed, there's a piece of paper representing that. That is humanity. It didn't even want to look. And then I asked it to be on top of the chair and at least look. And by the end of the constellation, humanity was on the floor, still not on the carpet, but on the floor, and bowing to the virus. But what I saw again was that the virus was facing out and not relating to any of the other representations. And so again, I added a representative for where the virus was facing. And once again, the same experience, everybody who was representing said, "That softens me, that is a wonderful presence." And the virus and this presence had a very loving connection. So this is where I called Karl Heinz and said, "What do you make of this?" Because usually what we see with illnesses is that they have a message from something in the past, something that was excluded, something that wasn't digested. But somehow this one seems to keep looking to something that has no connection to the past, that almost seems to be from the future, or somehow not connected to all the other representations. And so this is where I was trying to come to grips with, how do we integrate this breakdown and suffering we're seeing in our world right now with this thing that we see in the constellations of something sweet and wonderful. And so that was my question to you. And of course, we also want to hear what you're seeing in your constellations and what you're making of it, Karl Heinz.
Yeah, sure. Well, I did a few constellations on that, of course, before you called me, but I did one after that. And this is the most interesting one. Normally, I work with a disease or a symptom, and the person, you know, who's having the issue, plus the messages of the disease and messages of the symptom. And I did that too. And this the person was now humanity, because it's humanity, it's a collective thing. And then I had the virus, and I had the disease, the COVID-19 disease. And I had the symptom of I had the message of the virus and the message of the disease. And the messages, plus the virus, they had a big view all in the big circle around, and they saw many people in the outer circle. And humanity showed to be like the center of humanity would be hollow. Nothing there. So I said, what is this? So I put the center of humanity there. And the center of humanity was something like aggressive and like some negative. And then I put the heart there. And the heart wanted to go to the center of humanity, but could not. So, and then I said, okay, what is this, the outer circle? Where do the virus look at? Where does the disease look at? And all the messages. And I tried a few things. But first, I put those people there, and they were all dead people. A big dead circle of dead people, way back through times, all through the times. And I thought maybe it's the plague. I tried the plague. It was not the plague.
Yeah.
The plague, yeah. It was not the plague. So I tried the wars, and it was the dead people who died, were killed in wars. So the virus and the disease are connected to all the dead people of all the wars of humanity. Then, so it was clear this is something going back to a big trauma, huge trauma of humanity, which somehow, was hollowing humanity. So normally, if I work with a person, then I go to the family of origin or a former life experience. But former life for humanity makes no sense for me. So I did I put one position and I called it, this is the system of origin of humanity. And I put it there, and there was some sort of trauma in the very, very background of humanity. And it was pretty mysterious, but it was clear that somehow there was like a foreign power, or let's say something happened in way back in the history of humanity, which created post-traumatic energy, which is still here now. And then if I work with a person with the trauma, it's always important that they understand this burden, this depression, this feeling here is not really mine. It might come from the family on the personal level, but it's still foreign, from the perspective of the person. So then I had the idea, maybe humanity has to understand that the things and the power who leads us to all those wars and to all those dead people might be, from the perspective of humanity today, may be a foreign energy coming from humanity, but from the beginning of times for somehow a big trauma, which I don't kind of tell you right now, but it's like a foreign energy. So that if we would understand that we have to now get rid of this hollowing, aggressive energy, which is obviously somehow got head away to our center, that we put the heart there and give that back to the trauma of the early humanity. Mm-hmm. And this was very interesting. When I did that, the virus was going down and the disease was going down. So it's important to see that. So what that really means is that everybody of us can really establish the heart energy right there in your center. And if you have any aggression or fighting or fear, that you see this is a foreign energy for humanity today. We as humanity today need to come back to that heart energy. And from there, we will be ready to go into a new future. And it's a big thing. It's a big thing. So that's what I saw.
Wow, that is really interesting. Thank you. It makes me think of, the collective trauma of all of our families, wherever we're from, there is collective trauma remnants, and they're all being flushed up right now. And, we all have a chance to clear them. It's so fascinating. I work as a psychologist, so I see regular patients every day, and how we all cope seems very related to what's in our background from our families of origin. So it feels as though all that is being flushed out, and there is great opportunity to help clear it.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, and I think we need each other. We need connections with others to help us establish the heart again and to clear some of these protective mechanisms like anger. How do we do that to stay in connection with each other, to help each other clear some of those old traumas?
Yeah, community is a big thing right now. Community is the answer to that virus and to the epidemics.
Right.
And to find the good and new form of community. You have to understand that everything is connected to everything. You are connected to everything. Everybody is connected to the world, to every other human being. And this is so, in the highest philosophical level, you are also the other one. Mm. And if you know that, you don't have to be afraid anymore, because you don't have to be afraid of yourself. Mm. So in this, and you are all connected to the virus and to every other disease, and also, of course, connected to all the positive things in life too. So you can see this virus as your friend, which brings your message on the collective level as human beings, as humanity. And you can also see that this virus has a message for every one of us on a very personal level. And constellation work is a wonderful tool to find that out.
Mm-hmm. Right. So there's a message for humanity, but there also is one for each individual in their way of coping. Right.
Yes. Yeah. And for every community, so it's all very interesting. It's a chance. And if you look at the virus like this as a friend, you lose the fear. Instead of doing this and you sense a danger out there, and so you're depressed, and all your cells, all your immune cells are also depressed, and you have a greater chance to be infected. But if you know a friend out there, which brings chances, then you can see the chances, and then your body automatically strengthens, and all the energies of your body cells also go up. And you're stronger, and you're enjoy. And with this, you can go through this crisis much easier, and do whatever the chances are to solve whatever comes up.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. Well, I also think we're going to need each other as support for some of the breakdowns that are going to happen. You know, it's not all about just the expansiveness, but can we stay expanded when someone dies? Can we help them grieve? Can we support people who lost their jobs? You know, it's kind of an interesting, very practical reality of keeping your heart open in the midst of this time. And so, yeah.
And do it with the heart energy and with compassion.
Yeah.
And if you sense how you do that, you can start right away now, or spend an hour with it, or a day. Allow yourself to stay in this consciousness. It's consciousness.
Yeah.
For a day and see what happens,
Mm-hmm.
and the world might change for you.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you. Well, I get in a little note here saying it's time to move on to questions. That seems so very brief, but here we are. Is there anyone who has a good question? Or Maya, do you want to bring one in? Paul, saying something on chat? I don't know.
So there's one question that has come in more than once, and so I think it's for Karl Heinz. Why do you distinguish between disease and virus?
Okay. I just want to see the whole picture, and sometimes the messages of the virus and the disease, they have the same. They say the same. Like in this constellation, which I just told you about. In other cases, it could be slightly different, and it's just interesting to see two perspectives of the same thing, and sometimes there are surprises. So it's just a broader way to look at that. Mm-hmm. And the virus has a different or the bacteria, whatever you have there, has sometimes a different feeling, a different information than the actual disease and the symptom. There's also, you could do also a symptom like a pain, like a pain in your head or wherever you have that, or your lungs. You could even put organs there if somebody has a pneumonia because of the virus. And what do the lungs say? They might also have messages. So you can play with all those, or see all those different aspects, and you learn from that. And it makes sense to have a broader picture.
Wonderful, thank you. Maya, I got a little note from a colleague, Paul Zonneveld. He's on the call, and he's also a constellation facilitator, and he'd love to share something. So I don't know if you can manage to get him on. Is that possible?
Might not have the
I think I'm on now, Samvedam. And Karl Heinz, thank you very much for your rich expression and the richness of what you're sharing. 2 days ago, we did a constellation on the virus. And two things related to what you're saying is that in the constellation, we had the victims of the virus. And there was a beautiful move from the Earth, who was also represented, to honor the victims. And in that, the victims started to transform into spiritual helpers for everybody. And that also speaks to the being together around the grieving. And the other thing was that the virus was a pretty massive presence. And behind the virus, it was both the Earth and the new who were being represented, which were out of view. And I think that behind the virus, there is a message. There is something. And as soon as the virus stepped aside and showed who were behind her, the whole constellation relaxed. And it became a collective field of opportunity. And also there was this compassion, and the collective grieving had a space there. So it speaks very much to what both of you already alluded.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Paul. Wonderful.
Can I say, should I say something to that?
Go.
Well, thank you. This is a great experience, and it's just the same which I saw in this one constellation. Grief, big grief. It's just huge grief. And I also forgot to mention that I had the Earth, the planet, and I had Mother Earth. And Mother Earth was in the beginning of the constellation trying to protect the planet from humanity. But then later on, this shifted. And planet Earth always said, my beauty didn't help me. My beauty, even my beauty cannot help me so far.
Wow.
But it changed then after this this original trauma in the way background of humanity came, and it was clear all those negative energies are foreign for today's humanity. They can't go there, and healing can maybe be there, whatever this mystery might be. And so it was also shifting there. Yeah. And yeah, so grief is there. We have to grieve of all the dead people which were killed by other human beings. Mm-hmm. This is what we should do as a community. Mm-hmm. This is the start right now.
Yeah. Yeah, we called, I'm relating to what you just said and what Paul said, we called this new thing that we had no name for, we called it what wants to emerge as a representation. And I think the difficult part is that what wants to emerge will go through a very painful time. And to acknowledge that too, so that the grieving needs to be there, the change will be there. And in our last exploration yesterday here in the US, what came through was a chant, almost like a Native American chant. And the message was keep singing. And it made me think of how many people, particularly where I live right now, were killed by the smallpox that white people brought here. And it was an epidemic just like what we're living through right now. So again, this sensation that all the old collective traumas are rising, and as a parallel track almost that we have to kind of digest together and grieve together so that something new can come back in. So, sort of bittersweet.
Yeah, it's bittersweet, but it's also sweet. It's not only bitter.
Yeah.
But you could just one thought. You could also look to genocide as an epidemic or a pandemic, and it was a pandemic and still going on. Mm-hmm. It's a pandemic of this foreign trauma energy, which obviously possessed the center of humanity. And now the big thing which wants to emerge is really huge. It's really huge. Mm. It is a change on that, so that the heart can take over our center, and it happens in every one of us if you open up for this.
Yeah.
And then you go to grief, and then there is community feeling, and there is also joy behind that, and there's love behind that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
And we have support,
right,
from healing energies.
Wonderful.
And this is, I call them energetic or shamanic healing energies, mm-hmm. which work in healing voices. We have support. We are not alone. Yes.
Let's take a breath with that. That's good remembering.
Yeah, we are not alone.
Yeah. I also see that Dan and Emily are on the call, and their colleagues and Constellation Facilitators. Maybe a last brief sharing. Do we have time for that?
No.
We don't?
We are 6:40.
Oh,
so we are
already
40 minutes. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I would love to hear it, but I think we're
we would love to hear everybody right
yes,
now.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that we cannot really listen to everybody.
I get it. So we're coming
for the next 24 hours maybe. But please write your comments, write your questions or whatever. We will come back to you on email or chat, whatever. Because the community is the most important energy which we have for this.
Yeah, and I'm just getting 3 emails at the same time. Can we do this again? Can we do this again? Can we do this again? So we probably can do this again, right? So
next
we'll
week.
continue. Well, maybe not next week. It's Easter next week, but we will continue the conversation. Well, yeah, who cares? It's all changing. But let's change focus a little bit, because for this last while, we're going to have Karl Heinz talk about what he does with the healing voices and have an experience of that in our own bodies. And we'll kind of close with a little bit after that. So the next 10 minutes or 15 minutes will be in regards to that, right, Karl Heinz? Is that correct? Yeah. Okay, so let's go to that chapter.
Okay, yeah, well, I explain in a few words what healing voices is. It's a shamanic healing method which developed within my work in the last 20 years. So I did not develop it, it showed up in my work. And there's a whole story to that, and you will have the links and you can read about it. But how it developed. Since the last five years, I also connected it with systemic constellation work. But what it really is, just that you have an idea before I can provide you an input with that, is you can understand that in constellation work, we also have a pool of information invisibly in the air. That's the normal constellation work. You know, there's information in the air, like in a Wi-Fi field, and through the representative work, you have receivers and you have access to that information. This is with normal constellation work. With healing voices, shamanic healing energies, it's a little bit different, but also similar. So all those healing energies, which you will feel later on in the next few minutes when I do that, or in all healing voices sessions, those energies are also everywhere in invisible form, in the air, everywhere. Also, you could say like a special Wi-Fi field, but it's not information, it's really healing energy. But those healing energies obviously cannot be effective without a human being who is able and willing to be like a channel, or let's say a medium for this energy. And what I do if I work with healing voices, I go just, I lend them my body for a few minutes because it goes through gestures, and my voice for sounds, because it goes through sounds, also sometimes words or sentences out of ancient languages, which I don't understand. It's always different, but I just follow that, like in a constellation, you follow the movement. I do that and I follow it every second, and I don't know what they do and how they sing or what comes up there, but I follow that. And it could now for this, for today, could just, I will just provide a healing voices session for everybody here collectively, and also for the people who will listen to that later on, because we record that and we'll put it on YouTube. For all people who want to strengthen their immune system to get protection from this virus, and if somebody has already symptoms, also a help for getting healed from that. And there are already healing voices videos free on YouTube, and you will get those links too, which are like collectively for everybody, but this is special now for all of you. And what you do, if you want, you can open up for that. You can just sit there and close your eyes, so you won't see me. We will have a picture somehow there, and but you will hear. And you can just close your eyes and listen to that and be open for that. And whatever feeling might come, you can follow that through. You can let it flow. If there are pictures coming, which or maybe even a movie, some scenes, it's all okay. And also body sensations, it's all good. And this will be just 5 or not longer than 10 minutes or 8 minutes. And then there will be a little bit a minute silent, so you can follow that through. And then Samvedam will just close this session with a few words. So or we too just very calm, so you can stay in this energy even after we stop the webinar today. So you can follow that a little bit, and then we just communicate by chat and email later on. And well, I think we will do that again. And you will find out soon. Samvedam will bring those informations. Okay, now I think we're gonna start now. And so you can just sit there and close your eyes, or you can also open your eyes and look at the picture. And Maya, can you maybe bring the picture? I didn't send you one, I know, I forgot that. But yes, wonderful. So it's now just a few, maybe a minute silence. I will invite those healing energies, and then you will probably hear sounds. And you don't see the gestures, but they are also there. And you just open up. We start now. Healing voices for you. hai wa manai samata yesavuche emata emoita yesamahotyo emoyesemaye ematyesemahotomoye Seyawoy sabakesemaye evoye oye savoye savoye aye oh yes ema oh yes amoya oh yes amoya Amen. Samohe Samatu. Yesomote Yesabote. Mosato Semoye. Tease Teasa Itayaso. Emito Yesoto. Yeseto Yesemo. Sebuha, Samoha, Samohe, Esemo, Yeso, Yeso. Maya, Maya, I think you can remove the picture.
Thank you, Karl Heinz. That's quite a medicine to digest. Thank you for offering it to all of us.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Healing voices always touch all levels of us, of humans, at the same time. So just let it be there and do what it does and just receive it and feel it and perceive it, what's going on. You don't have to do anything with it. Just open up and see.
Thank you.
How you feel.
Yeah, it's a little difficult to find words after this, so I don't think we're going to talk a whole lot more, but allow people just to be with this call and what it evoked in you. I want to share a little quote someone just sent me. Sometimes it takes an overwhelming breakdown to have an undeniable breakthrough.
Nice.
And I just pray that as humanity, we can keep our hearts open and love each other in breakdowns and breakthroughs.
And just understand that bringing the heart energy back to our center, this is not some esoteric, just a little thing or you could try. No, it's the center of that crisis. This is what brings us to the new times. This is huge, and you can do that. You are, everybody is a power center in yourself. You will radiate that.
So in my shamanic training, there's a little phrase that we can end with today. It's called shungo, and it means from my heart to your heart. So maybe if you would like to unmute, we can all shungo each other. A way to close up called. So Maya, can you unmute everybody?
Go.
Go to all of you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us.
Big present.
Shalom, shalom, shalom.
Many different languages.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Wonderful to see you all. Be well.
I think we will be back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Samvedam, right, Maya?
I will be back. We'll figure it out. Bye all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And Maya, if you want to put the final page up, I guess I'm not witnessing. Bye.